When I was really young, I remember going to school, like about the age of 5. I started having these images and thoughts in my head of like bad images, like people dying, or I'd be in a class like this and I'd have an image of like a plane coming in and crashing into a building and it exploding and me trying to like escape and what I would do. So I remember wanting to talk to my mom about it because she's the most understanding, or so I thought. And so I went home and I was like, hey Mom, you know, I've been having these really weird thoughts in my head, and I explained it to her. And she was like, well, you're watching too many cartoons. You know, that was the answer. And I was like, no, it's like, there's like this voice in my head that's telling me to do things. If not, I get really like, you know, antsy. And she was like, yeah, it's the cartoons, you know, go clean your room or something like that. So from that point on, I knew that this wasn't normal, you know, because I knew she wasn't feeling that same way. And I knew that I couldn't talk to my friends about it. So I kind of kept it to myself. And it wasn't until my freshman year of college, when I was taking a psychology class, that I realized that I had obsessive compulsive disorder. And I will be talking about what it is, for those of you guys that don't know what it is, what the symptoms are, and how to treat it. So, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is an anxiety disorder in which people have unwanted and repeated thoughts, like the examples I think, feelings, ideas, or behaviors that make them feel driven to act out in rituals. So it all starts out with a centralized image or thought, or it could be a fear. For my fear, it was always my family dying. That was my biggest fear. So once you have a thought, you get anxious to, you know, get rid of it. You want to be like a superhero in a way and kind of like, you know, save them. So what you do is you do rituals, and everybody has like a favorite number. My favorite number is 4. So I always did rituals in even numbers or in the number 4. So that's what OCD is. Oh yeah, so what you do is you do the rituals to kind of ease the anxiety that you get with that centralized thought. So the symptoms, how do you know if you guys have OCD or if you know anybody that has it? Some of them are the obsessive thoughts, the rituals, the disturbing mental images, and clutter. A lot of people, like I said, I'll give you an example. So say I have a mental image of my family dying. I would go and I would touch this desk to kind of ease that, and I would do it 4 times, because that's my favorite number. And then, so that kind of eases the anxiety. So say I go to a public restaurant, I don't want to have to be doing rituals and stuff, because that's embarrassing. So what I would do is, if I'm at home, I would touch, instead of touching the desk 4 times, I would touch it 8 times to cancel out the future, you know, images that I would have, and so on. So you can see how that can easily drive you crazy. And as a child, how do you explain that to an adult? So these are things that you want to look for in children, or even in like your friends, to see if they're having these symptoms. Another is clutter. I know a lot of people think that OCD has to do with some sort of like cleaning, you know, obsessive like cleaning, but it's actually the complete opposite. It's actually the complete opposite. People with OCD are actually very unorganized because they have all these images going through their head that they don't have time to be organizing things. They forget where they put things, so it becomes clutterful. These are some of the examples of the symptoms that you might encounter. A lot of people with OCD wash their hands regularly, or they'll touch like doorknobs, or like I said, the desk, or light switches, stuff like that. Also, this is an example of a person that has OCD. This is also how I kind of found out I had it. Was I was in a psychology class and I was reading through the book, and as I was reading through the symptoms, it sounded exactly like the things I do. And this is kind of what my room looked like at the time too. And there's one unique thing about it, is that the side of the bed where the person lays on is completely clean. but everything else is completely cluttered. So my room doesn't look like this anymore, thankfully, but this is an example of what, you know, a person with real OCD lives like, instead of the clean person that people have, you know, an image of. And also, so once you find out you have these symptoms, you want to get treatment for it. Unfortunately, there's not a pill that we can take and, you know, be fixed. So there is a couple things though that we could do. One is medication, and what that does is it helps with the anxiety. It treats the anxiety, it helps reduce it. Psychotherapy, talking about it always makes you feel better, especially with somebody that relates in that, you know, they know what to look for. And say if you don't have money for medication or psychotherapy, because these could get very, very expensive, there's always support groups and technology in general online. There's all these blogs and support groups online that are free, and that'll help you, you know, especially with children, because people don't usually realize they have OCD. The average is like at age 19. So by then, you know, you've been through all your high school years and, you know, your critical years of development. So this is a cartoon that I put to kind of poke fun at it. It said, "Did you see that TV program on OCD the other night?" And then she says, "See it, I taped it 367 times." Because that's like her number. Okay. And that is it. Oh, and I hope that with listening to this, I hope that with listening to this, if you guys know of anybody that suffers from these same type of, you see them doing rituals, or if you know, especially children, because they're so young, like you could see through my example, it's so hard for a child to have to explain that to what they're going through to a parent. Thanks. Again.
All right, Ruby, the personal story at the beginning, I think, works really well at getting us involved in the topic. It gives us some drama that we're talking about. We get a nice identification of what the subject is, and then you lay out what the supporting structure is going to be, so all of the structural issues are fine. You do a good job signposting those as you go through them as well. On a couple of the points, you had some material that you explained. I didn't always hear research citations, but I did get a general sense that there was some content there, and I think you could be a little bit more consistent about that. The visual factors in the speech, you had lots of gestures, your facial expressions were animated, very good eye contact when you're talking to us. Obviously you planned the visuals pretty well. You're not really dependent on notes. The only thing that I thought was a little odd was you took that position, and I don't know if everybody thinks that that's the spot that you're supposed to speak from, but behind the desk is not necessarily the best spot to speak from. I know you're trying to stay out of the way of the screen, but you know what? That mouse will work from way over there. You guys have seen me use it. You don't have to hide behind the desk, and that just seems a little odd. And it seems like it's a default position for people, and it shouldn't be. The paralinguistic cues were pretty solid. I think maybe your voice could project a little bit more, but the pitch and variety were good. There weren't any problems with pronunciation. It seemed like it was quite regular. The only place where there was a little bit of awkwardness was right at the end. You got to the conclusion, and then you had a kind of coda, a postscript conclusion, because you really hadn't used a closing line per se. You just sort of finished, and then you got back to the closing line. So that was a little bit awkward, but that was a minor problem. All right. Thank you.